As we stand at the crossroads of economic growth and environmental sustainability, our panel discussion, titled Can Capitalism Weather the Storm of Climate Change? Rethinking its Role for a Sustainable Future, challenges us to question the very foundation of our economic system. Is it possible for capitalism to adapt, evolve, and lead to change towards a sustainable future? Our speakers will delve into this complex issue. So let's please welcome our moderator, Luca Ceccarelli, and our amazing panelists. Welcome them to the stage, everyone.
For the lady in the middle?
I was kind of hoping that too.
Huh? You want to go to that?
No, do you want to speak?
Yeah, hop over.
Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our fireside conversation on Can Capitalism Weather the Storm of Climate Change? Rethinking its Role for a Sustainable Future. My name is Luca Ceccarelli. I'm here with AI Synergy. I'm its founder, AI Synergy Leadership Consulting, where we are navigating the crossroads of education, AI, and resilience by facilitating literacy and leadership in the AI fields. I'm here with my panel. I'm going to pass it over to you all to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Luca, for that. I'll go first. I'm Bhavna Bagul, and I'm pretty honored to be sharing the stage with both Luca and my co-panelist here, Mike. I am a C-suite executive. I'm CFO, and I'm also a accountant, and that's why this is relevant to the conversation today. I bring in almost, over 15 years of capital markets experience, and I'm a big proponent of capitalism, but capitalism done the right way. I started my journey in accounting, so an accountant by choice, an engineer by heart, and a sustainability nerd through my third phase of reenacting my career. That's me. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you. My name is Mike Gaker, and I am a artist, a writer, a poet. I'm a timber frame carpenter, a woodworker. I also speak on behalf of the More Than Human World as Chief Bad Axe, the Speaking Tree. So I bring a little bit of a different perspective. I claim the mantle of the natural alternative to artificial intelligence, and I'm a New Earth dreamer. And so I'm going to be coming from a little different point of view today from the capitalism.
And I'm going to be looking for that crossover with the New Earth and the AI and the technology, and hopefully we can bring it all together. I love what the group we've put together today. With rampant global social unrest, wars, occupations, poverty and homelessness, famine and malnutrition, dwindling natural resources, rapid climate change is in full effect. And there will, perforce, come a recalibration, and with that, a reckoning to financial markets and economic systems, in large part built on the shoulders of conglomerates, titans who created the flawed bedrock of an intrinsically corrosive system. Capitalism itself, while fomenting disproportionate wealth, unrest, and inequity, takes the path of least resistance to achieve maximum expansion. Money will flow. The conundrum is that while its flow might be natural, its lust for ever-expansive, exponential growth is not. Nature works in cycles. While there is expansion, there is also retraction and stasis, and then expansion again. This is intrinsic natural order, at least here on planet Earth. So while it is to be expected that there will be a significant market reset, humanity itself is poised on the precipice of epochal shifts. And while that shock might cause discrepancies, it is very likely that capitalism will survive the storm just fine. Perhaps a more pointed question is whether the mainstays of capitalism, like fossil fuel extraction, distribution, and consumption, destructive agricultural practices, toxic chemical production, and even the rampant space exploration, the question is whether these can weather the storm of climate change. Let's open it up to our colleagues. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Can capitalism weather the storm of climate change?
I'll take a first shot at this, Luca. So I think responsible capitalism, when done ethically, when capitalism is held accountable, and when capitalism has to give answers when things aren't done in a specific way, yes, I think it can be a huge proponent to help put together a path to recovery, a path to mitigating climate change, a path to managing climate risk. So, and I only say this because I have been on the other side as an asset manager, portfolio construction, putting up assets together, building up a target portfolio for high net worth individuals, for institutional investors who really have the money. These are big insurance companies, the big pension funds that drive investments and where responsible investment can go. I'm a big believer in value investing. I'm a big believer in the acknowledging and being aware that climate change is upon us. What are we doing to mitigate the damage so that future generations have a more warm, welcoming home than we might intentionally leave for them? So I'm actually a believer that capitalism can lead the way. And I'd like to put forth another point in that argument in that favor is the fact that when we talk about capitalism, we talk about it in a very narrow construct, assuming the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. There's not enough responsible management. There's not enough nurturing. There's not enough caring for the environment. I have seen organizations, I have been a part of those organizations that are purpose-driven, and that is why I'm a purpose-driven person, and purpose drives all of us, right, and what we're trying to do every day when we wake up in the morning. A purpose-driven organization will clearly define what its values, vision is, and then be held accountable for it. So it's not just writing it down on your website, but it's creating a mechanism, creating governance to make sure you're actually held accountable. For a number of organizations, that happens mandatorily through governance by the regulator. And that's only because you're in a regulated space, because you're in financial services, because you're an asset manager or a trader, or that happens because you've opted to voluntarily do it. For those organizations that are small, that are not as big as the big guys in the room, but they still want to make change happen, and they might not fall within this regulatory purview, even they can make a change, right? So it all boils down to ethics in an organization. And there's this term, I'm a big fan of this term, it was penned a few years ago, organizational ethics. When we talk about ethics, it's a very loosey-goosey term. It is, yes, if you are in a profession where before you become the professional, you're supposed to take an oath. Whether you're a doctor, you're taking the oath to take care of life. Whether you're an accountant, who takes an oath to be true and fair and have integrity in your work. Ethics, I think, is left only for those people that remember that ethics is important. We need to bring ethics into the broader conversation and hold organizations accountable for the organizational ethics. And that's the definition of organizational ethics is the capacity and the capability of an organization to manage itself responsibly in fulfilling its obligations to its stakeholders. And that's the key. Stakeholders could be all across the spectrum. It's not just your shareholders. It's not just the for-profit company, so you're keeping the board and the C-suite executive happy. It's not just the regulators. It goes beyond that in the organization's responsibility to the community it serves, to the employees it works with, to the customers that it needs to engage and keep. which is why I believe responsible capitalism can actually not only weather the storm, but if done the right way, can help lead the recovery.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think a couple of things that come to mind for me is it seems to me that climate change is a reflection of capitalism gone awry. And so I'm not certain that it has the capacity to change. And I believe that what climate change is, our planet, our Mother Earth, is speaking to us, and it's telling us we've gone astray, we're not doing things right, and we need to look at things in a different way. And I believe what it's asking us to do is restore right relationship with the natural world, to live in harmony with the natural world instead of in dominion over. And capitalism is extractive of the natural world. Capitalism accounts its externalities onto the commons of the natural world. I personally don't see capitalism having the capacity to make the necessary changes. And a lot of the question, and this goes back to the original people of this continent, the indigenous people, they said a time like this would come and we'd be faced with a choice. And that choice would be a material or a spiritual. And lots of people believe that that time has come. And the question that is posed under that context is, will humans survive climate change? Not so much will capitalism survive, but will humans survive? Do we have it in us? And I also like to point out that Albert Einstein said that no problem can be solved at the same level of consciousness that it was created at. And so I think we're challenged with raising our consciousness to a level where we understand our place as humans on this planet with a little bit more humility to the more than human world. That Western society doesn't seem to be able to recognize the consciousness and intelligence that exists outside of our own humanity. And I think that's a good place where we can start to raise our consciousness to understand that the mountains, the trees, the water, there's more intelligence there than we can imagine.
So just to stay on this for a second, Mike, I'm curious, have you seen examples of better financial systems that aren't based on Western models, or do you have an alternative?
Well, I'm not even sure I understand what the word financial means, to be honest. It's a woodworker and an artist. So no, not financial means, but means of trading and holding our value. And I wonder, when we talk about profitability, is profitability a necessity? Are there other ways to assess value? And where can we put value back into the commons?
Well, then let's go to Banu and stay on this thread. Can sustainability lead to profitability?
That's a great question, Luca. And Mike, with due respect, 100% agree. We need to, I think the consciousness evolution needs to transcend from an individual to the organization. And that is how responsibility is not transferred, but responsibility is acknowledged, and then responsible decisions are made vis-a-vis climate change. So I'm a huge believer, and not just because it's a belief system, but I have actually seen it happen, where sustainability can lead to profitability. When an organization says that their labor supply chains are good, they're not using underserved labor, they're paying them fair, they're following fair trade practices, it is not in a corner of the world where the laws and the justice system is very different. When a company says that, and when it puts its products on the market, that company can use that as a true differentiator. And when you use that as a differentiator, you create a brand for yourself. So sustainable practices, if you imbibe that within the value system within the organization, so if you're a B2B or a B2C organization, if you're within financial services and you're a trader, irrespective of where you belong, if you can tie in that you treat your people fairly, you're treating your customers fairly, and you are responsible for the community around you. You can't be responsible for the world. That's not quite right. But at least you're responsible for the community around you, and you demonstrate how you're doing it. That responsible way of building sustainable practices, building a sustainable business model, will lead to profitability. We're in an environment where everything is bought and sold online. We're in an environment where, to your point, Luca, and I know you're a big proponent for AI and the power that AI has. Again, responsible AI, right? When we bring all these different technological innovations together, we shouldn't be forgetting what Mike is saying here about humans and the responsibility to the environment. It's this beautiful mishmash of getting technology and understanding that we have to respect the environment, take care of the environment. We can't reverse the climate damage that has happened, but we can decelerate the acceleration. And how do you decelerate? You decelerate by acknowledging there's a problem, bringing that collective awareness, and then making measurable change. So sustainability can very much lead to profitability if an organization thinks of it that way.
Now, while I agree with you, my concern is that the notion of relying on good faith for what we might consider the bedrock of capitalism. I'm talking about conglomerates and huge organizations that really look at the bottom line. They look at costs, and good faith is not necessarily what motivates them. I think we often have the opinion that there's an us and them approach to capitalism, and we tend to forget the power of what I perhaps can refer to as a consumerism. That the consumers are what drive zeitgeist and trends and consumer trends. So do you think there's, passing it over to you both, do you think there's value in looking at the consumer as a force that can sway and change the capitalist model to adapt itself to sustainable practices and responsible capitalism?
Well, consumers tend to be followers more than leaders. But leaving that aside, I do see regeneration. And so people coming from the heart, I think there's room for creating organizations that regenerate the planet and make room for healing on the planet. And hopefully when the parts of the system that don't do that, inevitably the structural deficiencies will die off, and what will bloom in their place will be systems and organizations that are able to adapt and able to regenerate and create spaces for healing, because that's what our Mother Earth, that's what our planet is crying out for right now. It's crying out for healing because, we've spent so many years dominating and extracting, and we continue to burn forests. And just if you look at the planet as the living being that it is, it needs a rest from that sort of growth. So any financial system or capitalistic system would have to address the fact that growth at expense of the health and the well-being of the planet is not a path forward. And so can capitalism survive within a framework that puts the well-being and the health of the planet first? It's certainly one would hope that is something we can find out.
That's a great question, Luca. And it's funny with the world that we live in. is totally driven by social media. So yes, the consumer has a word, and consumer can drive where trends are, to your earlier question, and how powerful those trends can be, because it's no longer just one person sitting in China talking about it. It catches on pretty fast, and then the rest of the world is talking about it, right? So there is power in that. There's undeniable power in that. But I do want to go back to something that you said about accountability, right? So let me give you the example of BlackRock, the largest institutional investor, the largest asset manager in the world, $1 trillion balance sheet, and Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock. He didn't pen the term ESG, but he was the single largest proponent of ESG and ESG-linked investing, way before ESG was even a thing. So the argument that I have is...
Can you just clarify to the audience ESG for those who might not be in the know?
So ESG is another acronym, because we're so fond of acronyms, for environmental, social, and governance. So basically a collection of making sure sustainable initiatives are done. And when we say environmental, you're thinking of climate change, you're thinking of how to reduce climate change impact, risk manage it a lot more effectively. Societal is about how you treat your employees, labor, how do you treat your vendors, suppliers, and also your customers. And governance is what are the mechanisms you put within the organization to make sure you're leading the organization responsibly, whether it's the board, whether it's a vision and a strategy and values and then targets, and how are you achieving those targets? There's a whole framework of regulations in Europe that mandates organizations, whether you're publicly traded, whether you're a small farmer, you have to have responsible and ethical practices. And those frameworks are different. There are many different acronyms, and I'm not going to throw that out here, but Europe is 10 years ahead of what we in North America are even thinking of doing. Forget even putting it in place, even thinking of doing right now. So to your point on accountability, I think capitalism, because it controls, unfortunately, a lot of the money that flows in the global system. When you have responsible leadership that decides we're going to hold ourselves accountable to say our transition to net zero is going to look like this. It's not going to be 30 years from now. It is going to be 10 years from now. And this is the road path to making sure how we will achieve it. And when you do that and you put that out in the public domain, then you will be held accountable, because people will turn around and ask, was that achieved? The board will turn around and ask. The employees will turn around and ask. And another way of making sure this is done is you hardcore that into performance evaluations within organizations. This was the goal in 10 years. This is broader for the organization. How does that whittle down to what one individual in this department needs to do to help move the needle to get to that goal? That's what Larry Fink at BlackRock did. He put out an open letter that said BlackRock, with its $1 trillion balance sheet, is going to pivot into investing in only sustainable organizations, put together infrastructure projects where we're leveraging renewable energy. And he did this 15 years ago. Cut to Larry Fink today. He's backpedaling and fast-tracking back on what he said. And the reason why he's doing that now is not because his value system or core ethos has changed. It's because of the political environment in America, where ESG is no longer considered a good word. In a country which is, and I know this is not a political debate, but in a country where everything is so extremely polarized, basic human values are so extremely polarized, that's where ESG doesn't stand a chance. So capitalism is no longer worried about climate change.
And that brings me very much to my next point is, we've had various advances over those decades. We've had referendums, we've had conferences, there was the Paris Accord, then COP 28 and onward and so forth. We've had the United Nations crime alarm for 10 years, 15 years. We've had 2030, we've had 2050 as benchmarks, and yet we seem to not be making those benchmarks. We seem to not be meeting Paris Accord trajectories and goals. So what's the dynamic at play? We still have climate deniers.
Oh.
So what do we say to these individuals on the other side of the court when there is no problem, capitalism is just fine, and there isn't even a climate crisis?
Okay, that's well said. And you're absolutely right. COP26, COP27, the United Nations came up with very ambitious targets. Those targets are only sensible when companies accept them as targets, put them into their goals and say that, yes, we will make sure we are changing the way we do business. And for a lot of the fossil fuel industries, which are very rich, capitalistically driven, and managed in a capitalistic environment, for them, it's no longer, whether it's the big energy companies, the big petrol companies, it's no longer, it doesn't make sense for them to say sustainability is a way to make more profit. I completely get, accept that, understand that, we know that's happening. But the naysayers that believe that there's no such thing as climate change, I mean, we're in Las Vegas, and the Death Valley recorded its highest amounts of rainfall in the year. There's credible evidence that climate is changing. And to Mike's earlier point, this is where the earth rejuvenates, rebirth, goes through the cycle of destruction and then renewal. To all the naysayers about climate change not being there, they just need to look around their local environments and they'll know that climate in itself is changing, nature is changing. What are we going to do about it is the other end of that debate, right? And I understand we can hold capitalism on a pedestal and say, you're the bad guys, you're responsible for the degeneration right now. What are you doing about it? Or we as individuals could say, what are we as individuals doing about it, right? There is a problem we all need to acknowledge. Climate change is here and it's for real. How do you mitigate climate risk? And each one of us can do it in our own individual ways. I'd love to hear what your take on that is.
Well, I would say that directly, there's nothing to say to them. They're going to do what they're going to do. How are you preparing for a world that is different? What can you do about it as an individual? Or especially as an individual who's a capitalist, are you positioning yourself for a different world? That would be the answer. I think the ship has left port a long time ago as far as convincing those that don't believe or agree. That train's already off the tracks. And so within your level of consciousness about understanding that, I put you in a position to positions you in a new world as someone who does understand that those ways, those extractive ways, those violent ways are no longer going to sustain growth. And how can you use your capital and your influence to position yourself in to regenerate? Because there's lots of room for that on a local level. We can all make that choice.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't really have much. I get a bit stumped when I'm placed in front of a climate denier. It's very hard, and I appreciate your point, Bano, that it's changing in very many ways that people might even say, well, that's good. It's raining in Death Valley. See, climate change is good. And obviously, with the advent of climate change comes a whole other series of needs and necessities that have market value, and they can be bought and sold and traded, and that'll go right back into the flow of capitalism. So, being that it's 2024, it seems like one cannot have a conference discussion without bringing in AI.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of role do you see, if any, that AI could play in this conversation of capitalism weathering the storm of climate change?
Do you want to take that one? Because you have an opposing view that
artificial intelligence is artificial. It's not real intelligence. it's supercomputing, I don't recognize it as true intelligence. So it certainly has powers of computing, and people can harness it with their own natural intelligence, but it seems a little bit of a slippery slope that it will be used in that way. So as you had mentioned the first time we had talked about how it's like water and it flows to the low area, capitalism is. So I believe AI will be kind of the same sort of thing. It will be used in the lowest means possible, and very rarely will it be harnessed to heal the planet. I would welcome that. The planet would welcome
Manuel?
I do believe that AI has immense potential, again, when used responsibly. So in the construct of climate change, I hope. I'm not a developer. I'm not even going to pretend I understand how supercomputing works. But I have the hope that AI will be used to make sure that we can create a more safer, sustainable environment. And with that, what Mike just said, that's the hope, to make sure that we can create a world where climate change is no longer denied. There's no logical plausibility for denying climate change, number one. Number two, we're all working toward mitigating that climate change risk. And three, as individuals, we can do our own little mini contributions. You know, whenever you're going to buy a product, make sure we're the power of the millennials, we're the power of the Gen Zs, and we are the power of the baby boomers. Make sure you are buying responsibly so that you know you are contributing with a lesser carbon footprint. I think we can do that. It's how every ripple matters, how every pebble and rock in the ocean matters. Waiting for a grand old big organization or the government or the United Nations to come rescue us is not the way. What I honestly do believe is starting with just people in this room, you know, figure out how can you conserve energy? How can you change simple things like a thermostat and make it AI enabled? And so an AI enabled thermostat is going to save you and give you tax rebates. Starting from that to how far do you travel in your car? Do you really need to go in your car? Can you not take in any other form of commuting? There's so many different ways to what you choose to eat, how you eat it, what you choose to wear, sustainable fashion, not stuff that you change and recycle every 1 year, but how long can you expand what you're wearing? So all of us, if we realize that we're responsible citizens of Mother Earth and we're here to look after her and we do our own part in it, I think we can take off the responsibility to everyone else and just acknowledge that this is what we're doing and this is our part in making sure we can contribute to an era where, you know, we know how we are giving back to our future generations.
Sounds like you're speaking to the power of the consumerist.
Totally, everyone in this room.
You know, it's interesting because I asked the question because I've been having actually a very dynamic interaction and synergistic interaction with AI recently. I've been working on a book for 4 years called Flip the Pipe, which is an immodest proposal to save planet Earth and its inhabitants. And the idea behind it is that there's one thing that we've proven over the millennia is that humans are very good engineers of water, liquid, aquatic engineers. We can trade it, we can extract it, we can move it, we can do all kinds of things with liquid. We've got the right idea, we've got the wrong liquid. So if we flip the pipe from oil to water, so oil platforms become desalination, extraction, we're desalinating water, we're bringing it inland. So basically it's a model designed to re-terraform planet Earth by moving us into a hydro economy and switching over to hydrogen fuel cells for our power and various aspects. So there's a big ripple effect from job creation to economic stimulation, obviously addressing climate crisis, obviously addressing water rise and lack of water. It goes on and on. But I've been stuck because I'm not a professional in these fields. I don't know aquatic engineering. I don't know desalination. I don't know petroleum processes. I don't know any of this. So I can have a conversation now with an AI, with various AIs. I have 3 or 4 that I really like. And I kid you not, I've had some of the most dynamic and stimulating conversations about this subject than I've ever had with anyone else. And I'm learning where are the pitfalls, where's the problems, who do I need to speak to as a human, how do I verify the information that the AI is saying. You know what AI is saying? It says, yeah, we can do it. We can flip your pipe. And you know what it said? It said, this is a genius idea. We're like humans should do this. AI approval, that's something we talk a lot about with AI, is that it tells us what we like to hear.
I know.
You know, and it can also help us with the critical thinking. So personally, I feel that I actually think it's the reason we invented AI, is to get us out of this conundrum. Can capitalism, can humans weather the storm of the clash of the titans between capitalism and climate crisis? So I feel like we need help, and this might be exactly the help we've been looking for.
I'd love to see that book when it's done.
Thank you very much.
And co-contributed by AI. You have to give credit to AI in your book.
That's what we teach with AI literacy and leadership with AI synergy. That's exactly what we're teaching. You got to cite it. You got to cite the prompts. You got to verify it, and you got to know how to prompt, and you'll get good results. We have plenty of time, and I wanted to go to one of your questions, something that you were talking about, Mike, in the line of work that you're in, the way you live, the way you experience the world, what kind of changes are you already experiencing that lead you to have faith that humans can adapt to climate change?
Well, humans have always lived on this planet, and so the ability to adapt to this planet, and I'm a believer of humans will need to go back to what we know how to do with our hands and our feet, and one of the most overlooked in the discussions of powers is the power of the human, and the human energy is never discussed as something that is a solution to the energy crisis. And human energy is what got us to this point in the first place. So I'm a huge proponent of human energy and working with your hands and using the tools that are in you know, walking, riding the bike. And I just find that it's mystifying to me that it's you know, not discussed more, that humans need to get back to what made us human in the first place, you know, standing upright on our 2 legs and working with our hands. So I see that as, you know, a potential. The thing I see with energy usage, right, is the inefficiency of, you know, does everybody need to be driving all over here, there, everywhere? Life went on this planet without, you know, I don't know how many cars are in the world. You know, do we all need a car to survive on this planet? We need a car maybe to just survive in the systems the way they're set up now. And lots of people need cars and we need transportations, but as far as surviving on this planet, we don't need cars, we don't need airplanes. There's a lot of places where we can really cut back energy use and move forward by going back.
And I think these are challenging conversations because we can have utopian visions of how we think the world could or should or might or go or would be better, and yet we live in a world that's obsessed with scalability and being able to ever expand exponentially. So we, in a sense, we have to operate within the confines of the system that's presented towards us if we can't change the system.
Well, I mean, the system is really, the biosphere is where the guardrail is, not the system. The system is not superior to the biosphere. So, I mean, I'm not sure that I agree with that the system, we can just let the system be. Now, that's a difficult choice. I understand that, especially when it comes to something like transportation and cars. But certainly that can be done. And as far as scalability, I mean, we all got legs, so, so there's really nothing there. So I think humans are going to we'll have more inability to succeed without some of we don't need all the energy we use to survive on this planet. We do not need to have the extensive energy footprint that the modern human has.
I like that. The biosphere is the ultimate system.
Yeah.
And yet we sit here in Las Vegas where there's some more flashing lights than
Yeah,
I don't know. You want to add to that?
No, I think that was well talked out, actually.
Yeah, and I think it's important also to look at within the context of climate adaptability or adaptation. There are significant changes being made. For example, you look at the exponential diffusion, production, and installation of solar panels. One looks at the R&D, the developments that have happened in desalination or in hydrogen fuel cells. It just so happened that electric cars went down the avenue of lithium-ion batteries, just as easily go down the avenue of hydrogen fuel cells and have an economy of scale that emits water. So at that point, we like our cars. Americans like their cars. People around the world like their cars. All over, we like our cars. So we can't take the cars away, but maybe we can make better cars. That's, again, economy of scale. That's, can we, as a consumerate, work with the system to make it more biospheric?
Yeah. I'm not taking anybody's cars away. Let me make that clear. I think we all know that. But, you asked the question of how we can survive, and is a car something necessary to survival? And maybe that's the choice people will need to make to be able to survive climate change. How important is your car to you? Would you rather live or would you rather have your car? Maybe that's what it's going to get to. And for some people in this world, it's already getting to that point. In the places where climate change is hitting hardest, the choice is being made for them. So the question I think people moving forward will need to face is, do you want to make this choice for yourself, or do you want to let the climate make that choice for you? And if you look on YouTube or wherever these things are now, and you see the waves coming in and the cars floating out, and there was lots of stuff from the Japanese tsunami, do we want to let the choices be made for us, or do we want to make them for ourselves? I think that's ultimately what we will face moving forward. And some people will have longer opportunities to make those choices. And some people have already had those choices made for them, and there are already severe consequences of climate change for many countries in the third world. And right now you talk about water, they're running out of water in major cities.
Not for long. Not until once we start flipping the pipe, I think we're all going to shake.
Well, they need that. They need it now. They need the water now. So
yeah.
But
we have a few more minutes. Sorry. Did you want to respond to that or add to that, Donna?
I just want to make sure we end on a positive note. It's not doom and gloom.
I appreciate it.
We need to end on a positive note, and that positive note is that there's always hope. Humans, by virtue of who we are living on hope, and hope can be a very strong energy. What I'd like all of us to do is maybe go back and reassess, like a call to action, right? For those watching, for those in the room right now, to say, what is it that you can do in your little part to make sure you're a little bit more sustainable than yesterday, or a little bit more sustainable than I don't know, a week ago or a month ago. And it doesn't really mean that you give up on your car. It doesn't really mean you give up on that favorite meat you want to eat, but you figure out what it is for you. And that little trickle can lead to a big tsunami. So if that one person changes and that lifestyle change happens, people around you follow, you make it a fad on TikTok, everyone else follows, and then boom, the world is a little bit more sensible and responsible. I have hope, and I have a lot of faith in humanity. So I would want to leave it at a positive note.
And I would echo you completely. I think there's obviously the challenges that human civilization are experiencing now are epical and of seismic proportions. and yet there is so much opportunity for good to emerge from all of this, for us to find a dynamic, sustainable future using all the tools that we have available to us. I'd love to have some questions from the audience.
Great panel. Really good insights. I really appreciate it. My name is Alan Leroy. On the side, one of my passions is to mentor and to talk to the next generation of change makers and innovators. I go to colleges and high schools. And back to this topic, one thing I'm an advocate for, or when I talk to these kids, is social entrepreneurship. The notion that, what is sustainable business development? Can we figure out a way to make profit by doing good? And specifically for Michael, what advice would you give to that generation? Very ambitious. They think about things a completely different way. They've been here before, right? They say the younger you are, the older your soul. Mm-hmm. And they're pursuing a route of being entrepreneurs, but they want to have businesses that have a mission and social impact. So what advice would you give them in going down that track?
Well, thank you for your question, and thank you for your work. And I think maybe I would want to get some advice from them because I think that's, something we didn't talk about here, but the younger generation who are going to inherit this world, I think they're much more in tune. And just the fact that they want to be social entrepreneurs, that's a beautiful thing. And I would encourage them to follow their heart and to do good on the planet, because that's what we need more of. We need more healing. And yeah, that's great. Thank you for your work. I appreciate that.
Right, and just a follow-up to that is, and I think maybe that's a bridge between the capitalistic bad guys, and because you need resources to build your business, build your empire that's doing good in the world, and maybe that's where this goes. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that I love the use of the word bridge, because that's what we need right now, is a bridge to a different way, because the way that's going now is not working for a lot of people and a lot of things. And I'm glad to know there are, social entrepreneurs who are trying to make a better world, because that's what we need.
Alan, thank you for the question. There's hope, right?
Yeah.
So you're so spot on, and I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing. Thank you for the work that you're doing, mentoring this next generation of leadership. They are already in tune with what they want, and they know that they want it done responsibly. This entire new generation, when I go to high school and universities and colleges, and it's not just hope, they have a keen sense of paying it forward already ingrained in them. And it's leveraging the power that collective has to say a lot more good can be done, a lot more responsible social entrepreneurship, a lot more responsible social capitalism. There, social and capitalism can exist together. But that's exactly what they're teaching us, right? Because this entire generation doesn't want to work for big name brands that does not have a very sustainable outlook. They're ready and open to developing their own companies, becoming entrepreneurs, launching their own products. They're ready to take in risks that I guess generations before them didn't. And because they come with this mindset, the more the coaches and mentors like yourself out there, the more we know we have hope. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to briefly speak to that, I'm running a program called Philanthropic AI with the students that I work with. And what's amazing and exciting about it is the amount of marketable projects that are emerging from these kids, where I'm looking at this 17, 16, 15-year-old being like, you're sitting on a multi-million-dollar idea, and it's a good idea, and it does good in the world. So keep it coming. Yeah. Thank you. Another question?
We don't have time for any more
Oh,
questions.
that's the question.
I apologize.
just,
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So
Thank
just
you.
real quick, if people want to be able to contact you, what's the best way to get through to everyone?
I have a website, axemaker.com. I teach woodworking to people of all ages, and you can contact me through my website, axemaker.com.
And I'm Bhavna. I'd be happy to connect over LinkedIn. Look for me as Bhavna the Gulf, and it's a pretty common name, but the hair is not very common. You'll figure it out that it's me. Happy to connect with everyone here as well, and good luck, everyone.
And Luca Ceccarelli, you can find me at aisynergy.net. Thank you all.
Thank you.